I think it's very important when you have the best players in the world together, you got to compete and you got to play hard and you got to show the fans how good they really are.
The masses assume her deadliest asset is shooting from deep. She shakes off elite defenders to launch spectacular attempts while rivals hit the deck. Yet that iconic Celtics legend insists the public focuses on entirely the wrong detail. During a recently exposed private conversation, the famous hardwood legend gave her advice that completely transformed her playstyle while shifting how she shoulders the entire women's basketball league. Believe me, the reality defies all your expectations. Praise rarely escapes his lips, acting as the ultimate absolute judge of true athletic mastery. Therefore, when this icon met with Indiana's freshly drafted superstar, everyone merely anticipated a classic and predictable ceremonial transfer of power. What actually happened was a brutal wake-up call. Now, we unpack this intense generational dynamic. We explore the hidden wisdom that salvaged her debut campaign, revealing why he considers her the lone athlete in 4 decades to master this sport's most ruthless psychological elements: that shared heartland bond. Grasping the immense impact of his guidance requires diving deeply into their uniquely shared regional origins. These two icons were forged in rural athletic hotbeds. He hails from a tiny Indiana village, whereas she dominates straight out of central Iowa. Yet, this goes far beyond rural similarities. Back in 1979, his professional debut arrived while the association desperately fought to simply survive. Viewership plummeted alongside fading mainstream interest. He did not simply compete on the court, he practically resurrected the entire sport single-handedly. Jumping ahead to 2024 and 2025, women's hoops faced an identical crisis. Her phenomenal impact represents an absolute data-driven miracle rather than mere promotional hype. During a brief sideline stint for health reasons early in 2025, viewership completely collapsed, suffering a staggering 55% absolute freefall. The iconic forward noticed this immediately, intimately understanding that immensely crushing messianic pressure. He remained the final athlete forced to elevate a struggling organization instantly while enduring relentless physical attacks from jealous, established professional opponents. During their summit, mechanics and shooting form never came up. Instead, they discussed the massive, glaring bullseye painted squarely upon her jersey. The Hidden Counsel. This forms the absolute foundation of his critical message. Fresh industry whispers reveal his lesson centered entirely on maintaining lethal composure. Throughout those brutal early weeks, the rookie constantly took the bait. She visibly engaged with brutal cheap shots, fired back at internet trolls, and let the relentless, punishing physical hazing penetrate her mind. Officials were analyzing the earlier aggressive contact. It truly appeared she was merely attempting a basic, offensive lane change. Malice seemed entirely absent from that specific sequence. However, the veteran icon strongly believed any emotional response was a massive tactical error. She had to transcend the petty drama. He commanded her to stop talking trash and start destroying opponents by weaponizing their immense pressure. Revealing even a tiny flinch of anger, he warned, simply hands those brutal enforcers an instant psychological victory. Pointing back to the 1980s, he contrasted his rival's joyful charisma against his own ruthlessly silent and cold-blooded execution. The legend confirmed she possessed that exact killer instinct, yet stupidly squandered her intense emotional energy constantly arguing with officials. So how exactly did this mentality shift spark such incredibly insane offensive numbers during the final stretch of the campaign? Advanced analytics from those specific games absolutely vindicate his wisdom. This marked a profound tactical evolution into weaponizing her mere presence. Grasping the true magnitude of their incredible dynamic demands, totally ignoring basic statistics, and obsessively breaking down the actual game footage. Prior to that crucial sit-down, she operated entirely under the crushing, incredibly suffocating weight of her own massive celebrity status. Seriously speaking, what words even capture this monumental era for the sport? Especially viewing the absolute madness from your specific front row seat? That context was absolutely crucial to grasp. She launched terrible, deeply contested long-range bombs purely to entertain rabid fans who dropped massive fortunes strictly to witness that spectacle. Prioritizing flashy, viral-worthy sequences severely damaged her offensive efficiency, sparking a truly disastrous passing-to-mistake ratio throughout her entire opening professional stretch. Neither squad managed to build an advantage surpassing 7 points. A brilliant pass out to the perimeter allows a beautiful buzzer-beating dagger. That makes 3 massive long-range connections before the halftime horn. Suddenly, the legendary mentor stepped in, supposedly looking her dead in the eye and completely deconstructing the sport's most fundamental core mechanics. He bluntly stated that she possessed supernatural court vision, effortlessly mapping both teammates and blind opponents perfectly while everyone else scrambled. Handing them totally predictable attempts means surrendering your control. Force the opposition into your rhythm instead of desperately dancing to their tune. Dissecting the crucial turning point. Following that deep conversation, video evidence highlights an unbelievable shift in how she controlled spatial awareness. That legendary aura everyone praises actually stems from her immense magnetic spacing, not mere point production. The Hall of Famer orchestrated defensive collapses without requiring possession. A terrifying psychological tactic, the rookie immediately began to weaponize flawlessly. She began distributing the rock a full 2 ticks faster, launching lightning-fast transition dimes, or punishing double teams by threading it to corner snipers, the absolute instant they collapsed. That devastating trap was completely destroyed. Squads that once relentlessly pressured her near midfield grew entirely paralyzed, horrified to abandon their matchups. Such calculated restraint accomplished far beyond padding her own numbers. It unleashed Indiana's full lineup, unleashing their colossal front court and their unstoppable force. Aliyah Boston reaped the greatest rewards because she magnetized every defender's gaze before instantly dissecting them via spectacular interior feeds. The paint fractured wide open in unprecedented fashion. Indiana evolved from an obvious solo act into an unstoppable, multifaceted postseason monster. Meanwhile, the legendary forward recognized his own darkest battles perfectly mirrored within her, possessing an on-court brilliance so profoundly elevated that it utterly infuriates your very squad. Back during the 80s, he regularly hurled absolute lasers toward locations his peers were nowhere near. He gifted her the secret of simplicity, demonstrating how to deliberately simplify her genius for the surrounding crew, delivering perfect spheres precisely into their waiting hands. By locking all that chaotic brilliance securely within her mind, she ceased battling rival squads directly, choosing instead to manipulate the very essence of the sport, an absolute organizational prophecy. Those strategic whispers carried weight, yet his perspective regarding her astronomical worth felt genuinely staggering. During an explosive 2025 sit-down, which completely rattled executive suites nationwide, he loudly declared she must never be categorized merely as another athlete. She outright commands the ownership stake and prestige of a standalone organization. He pulled absolutely zero punches regarding the vindictive hostility seasoned professionals threw her way throughout those initial 2 campaigns. He traced an unbroken path straight toward his own 1979 professional debut, an era where basketball practically sat on its deathbed. "The moment I arrived, the established guys absolutely despised my guts," he quipped, wielding that trademark sarcastic venom. They detested the cameras and utterly loathed some fresh kids stealing their thunder. Yet the truly intelligent ones finally closed their mouths. They understood I never arrived to steal their jobs. I represented the sole catalyst doubling their salaries. She brings that exact same monumental wave. Whoever resists her essentially declares war against their own personal wealth. The devastating, unfiltered reality. That was the fierce reality he hammered into her behind closed doors. You hardly just represent Indiana. You operate as the undisputed executive commanding this sport's tomorrow. An absolute mental teardown and rebuild. His fierce guidance shattered her need for veteran validation, pushing her to fully devour the exact antagonist persona that journalists desperately attempted to cage her within. He made it clear that across pro arenas, honor is never gifted before tip-off. It gets violently seized between the whistles. Rather than feeling sorry for packing stadiums and shattering television viewership numbers, she forged that massive celebrity into a weapon of mental destruction. She finally grasped how her immense cultural magnetism rivaled her lethal hardwood presence. That 2025 playoff metamorphosis, that massive psychological shift fully materialized during the 2025 postseason. The erratic, easily triggered rookie, seen in early 2024, simply vanished. We were watching a cold-blooded executioner wearing Indiana colors. Her composure felt chilling. Her predatory drive felt razor-sharp. She unleashed his legendary brand of completely mute psychological warfare. The brutal variety needing zero actual syllables spoken. You saw it whenever she launched from 30 feet out, spinning around prior to the leather ripping the net, offering the rival sideline an absolutely chilling, dead-eyed glare of supreme dominance. She entirely abandoned, pleading with officials, choosing instead to mercilessly command the absolute tempo of battle. Once Indiana clawed their way into the grueling final stages of the playoffs, everyone realized she had evolved far beyond merely competing in a sport. She operated an empire, an immortal legacy. He never buys into the idea of a successor, yet confessed that observing her reveals an elite court manipulation he assumed perished alongside his own vintage era. Those private words didn't merely salvage her inaugural campaign. They miraculously rescued the entire league's explosive trajectory. That wisdom forged a collegiate phenomenon into an undisputed pro icon. The baton wasn't merely handed over. It ignited the entire basketball landscape into an inferno. He recognized that raging inferno burning inside her long before society understood its sheer magnitude, showing her exactly how to weaponize the massive bullseye painted squarely on her spine. The legend never just ensured her survival during that brutal first year. He orchestrated her total, undisputed conquest. That rural legend and the Midwestern royalty have now formally delivered a terrifying warning to the entire global basketball community. The sport remains permanently shattered with zero return path. So, did his brutal wisdom actually trigger Indiana's miraculous march toward greatness? Drop your wildest theories down below. And before leaving, obliterate that thumbs up if you genuinely believe we are witnessing an absolute legend currently being forged. Fire this off to your circle to end those arguments forever, and definitely hit subscribe for our deepest dives into the Phenoms completely rewriting professional women's hoops. We massively appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you for the next epic ride.